When we talk about tornadoes, Oklahoma immediately comes to mind, and it's not just because of the influence of movies like Twister, which ended up bringing these phenomena in the United States to people's attention far more than any news report could. This image you're seeing is a real image of a tornado that happened in the United States. So far, no surprises. Every now and then, America faces this phenomenon. But what if I told you that Brazil, which has always been seen as a peaceful land, the calamity was always in Brasilia, but when it comes to nature, we've always been very blessed. But this, my brothers, seems to be changing. It's no wonder that many people believe Brazil is under a curse. And maybe, for those people who think that way, the tornado in Rio Grande do Sul, which hit 3 cities, is a confirmation of that fact. Since I know you're really curious and want to know about the tornado that hit 3 cities in Rio Grande do Sul, a tornado in Brazil, grab your Tuscan sausage with bread and spicy ketchup right now. And let's start our segment, Señores do Mundo. Señores do Mundo. Gentlemen, when we think of tornadoes destroying houses, uprooting trees, and twisting barns, the first place that comes to mind is certainly the United States. There, in the famous Tornado Alley, states like Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas live under the constant threat of these devastating storms. It is the country that records the most tornadoes in the world, with more than 1,000 to 1,200 formations per year, so that Americans are ready to run and build shelters on their properties, schools, and so on. This is taught from childhood, starting in school. That's why, at just about any property over there, at least in Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, people always have a shelter. Some call it a basement and so on. But they're always dug into the ground. And all of this is because this culture is instilled from childhood. But if these phenomena start happening in Brazil, if Brazil also becomes the scene of this same kind of destruction, I immediately think of politics. Would our government be able to help people rebuild their houses, their homes, their streets if this phenomenon starts happening here? We already know the answer. At first glance, this might seem like an exaggerated concern. But if you do a little research on history, the history of the United States, my brothers, you will soon find out about the Jarrell tornado. This tornado was so strong that it tore the skin off animals and people. And it even went so far, my brothers, as to pull the lungs out of cows' mouths. That's right. Imagine the pressure and the force of the winds needed to pull a cow's lungs out through its mouth. And that's what happened. That scene you see in the movie Twister, the first one, the only one that's really worth it, where a city is literally destroyed overnight, actually happened. In 1999, Oklahoma was hit by winds of 420 kilometers or 261 miles per hour, as Americans like to measure. The winds peaked at 517 kilometers per hour, my brother. That's way faster than a Formula One car at full speed. Imagine those winds hitting walls, roofs, and so on. That May 3rd, 1999 became memorable because people who visited the city in the afternoon, when they came back the next day, found the place completely deserted. A demonstration, my brothers, of the power of nature. Many called it the finger of God, the famous F5. And now we've arrived in Brazil. For most Brazilians, our country has always been seen as a great refuge blessed by nature, free from earthquakes, hurricanes, and major tornadoes. However, our planet is constantly changing, and the sky in southern Brazil has shown a frightening side that many thought only existed in Hollywood movies. Recently, the state of Rio Grande do Sul witnessed a frightening and destructive spectacle. It wasn't just a heavy rain or an ordinary winter windstorm. What hit the northwest of Rio Grande do Sul was one of the most dangerous phenomena in modern meteorology, a supercell. Since I know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, let's watch this phenomenon recorded by people who survived it, and then we'll come back. Watch with me. Good. Wow, that's a massive tornado, look. The moon in the background over there. My God, get off the street. Let's go. It was late afternoon on a Tuesday in the rural area of northwestern Rio Grande do Sul. The farmer, Renan Baia, was traveling on a road between the municipalities of Giruá and Senador Salgado Filho when he looked up at the sky and saw something unbelievable. A dark and gigantic rotating column cutting across the horizon. With his cell phone in hand, he recorded the scene that quickly went viral throughout the country. His words summed up the feelings of thousands of Brazilians. It looked like something out of a movie, something we would never see in real life. Renan filmed the storm developing until the wind made the situation too dangerous and he had to leave the area. And what he witnessed was not a false alarm. The funnel touched down, technically confirming the formation of a tornado. More than 200 kilometers away, the Civil Defense Meteorological radar in Chapecó was detecting the massive storm over the territory of Rio Grande do Sul. The tornado directly hit at least 3 municipalities, Giruá, 7 de Setembro, and Senador Salgado Filho. The trail of destruction was immediate. In 7 de Setembro, 2 homes were completely destroyed and residents were injured in the rubble. In Senador Salgado Filho, more than 12 houses were hit and dozens of people were affected. Rural communities like Ricão dos Coimbras and Ricão dos Melos saw entire barns ripped from the ground as if they were made of paper. In total, at least 7 people were injured. The absence of precise weather stations at the exact point of touchdown prevented an accurate measurement of wind speeds, but the magnitude of the damage indicates severe gusts. This raises the question, what atmospheric mechanism could create this in Brazil? In the United States, there is an explanation. But what about Brazil? To understand the tornado in Rio Grande do Sul, we need to talk about the mother of this phenomenon, the supercell. In meteorology, there are common storms, but the supercell is the most dangerous and organized type of storm that exists on the planet. The key element that sets it apart from any other heavy rain is the presence of a mesocyclone, an upward current of warm air that continuously rotates within the cloud itself. For a supercell to form, the atmosphere needs a perfect and dangerous combination of ingredients. The first, a lot of moisture and heat at the surface. The second, severe atmospheric instability. The third, wind shear, which happens when winds at different altitudes blow in different directions and speeds, causing the air column to start rotating. That's where El Niño comes in. El Niño is the abnormal warming of the waters of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. When it is active, the wind circulation pattern over South America changes drastically. El Niño intensifies the so-called low-level jets, veritable invisible rivers of warm, extremely humid air that come out of the Amazon rainforest and descend towards southern Brazil, Paraguay, and northern Argentina. When this overheated and humid air coming from the north collides head-on with cold fronts coming from Antarctica over Rio Grande do Sul, the thermal shock is devastating. The atmosphere gains colossal energy, the heat feeds the storm, the shear makes the air spin, and the supercell comes to life, potentially lasting for hours and traveling hundreds of kilometers. Many people are surprised to learn this, but the geography of southern Brazil is part of the second largest tornado corridor in the world, the so-called La Plata Basin, or the South American Tornado Corridor. Let's make 2 direct comparisons between Brazil and the United States. The first one I can mention is the geographic setup. In the United States, cold air comes from Canada and collides with warm air from the Gulf of Mexico over the Great Central Plains. In South America, cold air comes from Patagonia and Antarctica and collides with the warm humidity from the Amazon over the Pampas Plains and southern Brazil. The physical dynamics are exactly the same, only the regions change. The second difference is the frequency and intensity. In the United States, more than 1,000 tornadoes occur every year, many of them reaching the highest levels of the Fujita scale, F4 and F5. In Brazil, the frequency is lower, and most winds are between F0 and F2, but we have already had tragic historic cases, such as the Indaiatuba tornado in São Paulo in 2005, and the one in Zanchoré, which happened in 2015 in Santa Catarina. The big difference between Brazil and the United States is not just in nature, but in preparation and infrastructure. While in the United States there is a dense network of Doppler radars, cell phone alert systems that warn minutes in advance, and houses with reinforced basements, in Brazil, the population is often caught by surprise. The density of weather radars in the interior of Brazil is still limited, as we saw in the case of Rio Grande do Sul, where the storm had to be monitored by a radar located more than 200 km away in Santa Catarina. In addition, most Brazilian buildings are not designed for winds above 150 km/h. Fiber or cement roofs and simple masonry structures easily fall apart under the suction of that same mesocyclone. What is a monitored risk for Americans often seems like unpredictable apocalyptic wind for Brazilians. Phenomena like what we saw in Jirua and also in other parts of the planet make us stop and think. It's not just about scientific data, the number of radars, or meteorological reports. There's something deeper happening before our eyes. In recent years, we have witnessed an unprecedented frequency of extreme events. Record rainfall, severe droughts, scorching heat waves, and storms out of season. For many scholars of the Holy Scriptures, the acceleration of this disaster on earth is not a mere coincidence. In the Bible, there are clear passages that describe the moments that would precede the time of great transformation. In the Gospel of Luke 21 verses 25 and 26, Jesus prophesied, "And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world." The roaring of the sea and the waves, the fury of the winds, and the instability of the heavens reflect exactly this state of perplexity that humanity feels when witnessing the uncontrollable force of nature. In Romans 8:22, the Apostle Paul uses a striking metaphor about the planet. "For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now." The analogy of labor pains is significant. Just as labor pains increase in frequency and intensity as the moment approaches, the signs on earth, whether climatic, social, or spiritual, seem to be becoming more frequent and intense in our era. And the moral of the story is this: regardless of what you believe, whether it's through the lens of science, which warns us about the changes on the planet, how the El Niño phenomenon and its supercells work, or through the lens of faith, which sees in these events a reminder of human smallness before the Creator. I don't know what you believe in, but regardless, the message is the same. We need to be alert and prepared. The tornado in Rio Grande do Sul shows us that the world is changing rapidly and that Brazil is not immune to the devastating force of severe weather. The earth gives us its signs daily in the skies, the seas, and the winds. It's up to each of us to listen and reflect on them. Personally, humbly, I tell you that in these 12 years of running the channel, I've seen things intensify in the last 3 or 4 years in a way I never imagined. It's becoming more and more common, my dear brothers, and anyone thinking about starting a channel wouldn't be crazy to focus only on talking about this kind of phenomenon, because it's happening somewhere all the time. Whether it's tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, fires happening out of nowhere, and so on. Making a channel just about this once seemed crazy, but now it's totally possible. I'd say even more so. There's so much happening, one person couldn't keep up. We can see, for example, channels today that talk only about drama. Currently, 2 major conflicts are unfolding, not to mention others that are happening indirectly. If all this still isn't a sign for you, my brother, I don't know what else could be. Anyway, my role here is to bring the information just the way it is. The facts, not opinions. This video ends here. I hope you enjoyed it and above all, understood it. If that happened, please share and show it to more people so we can keep making this content. And now is the time when your opinion really makes a difference and can even lead to a new video here on the channel. Tell me, what do you think about this? Are you the kind of guy who looks at this from a scientific perspective? Or are you more of the type who has faith? Or maybe you think one thing doesn't cancel out the other. Anyway, whatever your way of thinking is, it will always be very welcome and respected here. Leave your thoughts in the comments, my brothers. I make a point of reading them. May God be with you. A hug and just a quick heads up here from Davey, your friend. My brother and my sister, for me as a Christian, this serves as a warning about the coming of Christ himself. It really seems like it's getting closer and closer, but regardless of that, it also serves as a warning for us not to stop living our lives. Look, our country is changing. There are big floods happening, heat waves, cold waves, and now even tornadoes. In other words, that place you like, you want to go out and enjoy it. And many times you don't because you don't have time, because you're working. It's becoming more and more clear, my brother, that this opportunity might pass and these regions could change drastically. Besides that, my brother, there are the problems that keep coming up, and there's always someone talking about the possibility of another one happening. So don't miss the chance to visit that relative, don't miss the chance to enjoy that place you've always liked, because tomorrow, literally, it could be too late. That's advice from your friend Davi, my brother. Stay with God, and now yes, a hug, and always facing the supernatural here on Encarando o Sobrenatural Official. I'm out.